This week, the largest cache of terrorist content ever discovered online. But why is it so hard to take down? Unfurling the latest phone, and stand-up comedy in lockdown. It's no laughing matter. Hey, welcome back. I hope you're doing okay. We are still here for you, and we always will be, until we get the memo at least. Hey Lara, how are you? How was your time off? Do you feel refreshed?
Oh, I certainly do, but it's great to be back at work, even though that does just involve going to a quiet corner of my house and, of course, putting the click sign back up. How's your break been?
It was quiet, to be honest. I managed to fill it doing all the things I haven't had time to do in the last 6 months. Is that a break? I'm not sure whether it is really.
I don't know, but it does feel like the start of a whole new chapter.
Yeah, it does. It does. September's always been an important month for me. End of the summer, back to school and so on. But 19 years ago, one terrible event defined one particular day in September like none other. I am, of course, talking about 9/11. It's easy to forget that the horrific September the 11th attacks on the US happened before social media, before YouTube, before it became easier to spread hate online and recruit people to your cause. These days, extremist and terrorist content keeps emerging on the internet, and it always seems to be one step ahead of the authorities who are trying to clamp down on it. And now, one researcher has discovered one of the largest living and growing collections of online jihadist material belonging to Islamic State group. Technology author Carl Miller met with the Institute of Strategic Dialogue, who were behind this crucial find.
Al-Baghdadi is dead.
It was the early hours of the morning. Extremism specialist Mustafa Ayad was getting alarmed. Following the death of the Islamic State leader, the digital jihad was raising a dirge to Baghdadi on Twitter. Flitting from account to pro-IS account, Ayad noticed something strange. Some of them carried short, discreet links, not within their tweets, but nestled in their biographies. He clicked.
It was a PowerPoint in a folder dubbed the Mujahid's Bag, and it taught you how to hijack planes. In that folder is everything you would need to know to build your own bombs, create your own chemicals, plan an attack, coordinate attack, kidnapping operations, stabbing operations, things that teach you how to be a better terrorist, essentially.
When Mustafa told me his story, I was completely astonished. There, just a click away, was folder after folder, file after file, just this vast, multi-ethnic, multilingual expanse of terrorist content, bigger than anything that any of us had ever heard of before. Well, for Mustafa though, his story was just beginning.
This one's much clearer. This is a higher resolution.
To his knowledge, this was the largest cache of IS material ever discovered. More than 90,000 pieces of content in all. And although he didn't know it then, it was also the first time it was being pushed into the outside world. And to his horror, this was no document dump, no static thing of the past. The contents of the cache were changing and growing. Someone was editing the cache live.
That is not good.
What it proved was that despite concerted attempts to clear extremist and terror content from the internet, and claims by various agencies that they'd been largely successful in doing so, ISIS is not defeated. It's still there, alive, online.
This is our Khilafah in all its glory, remaining and expanding.
So Mustafa alerted the counter-terrorism prosecutors in New York, as well as the Met Police and Home Office in London towards the end of last year. 10 months on, he's yet to hear back.
and there are thousands of masajid and schools for our cubs and pearls.
Getting it removed became a passion for Mustafa and his team.
They understand how not just to game platforms, but they understand the power of the content that is contained within the Caliphate cache.
Versuch, die Soldaten hier hinzubringen.
While the documents remain up, the traffic going to them can be monitored. According to the researchers, access to the cache is largely from young people, mainly 18 to 24-year-old males based in the Arab world. Almost half of the traffic comes from popular social media sites, and most of those clicks come from YouTube. There are also the Twitter accounts featuring links to the cache in their bios, or sometimes even embedded in images. These accounts are lucky to survive for a day in the face of Twitter's enforcement, so IS hijacks accounts and tries to automatically create new ones constantly and at scale. A hijacked Justin Bieber fan page was used to host the links, as was an England rugby team supporters account, which was then unwittingly followed by the team itself.
It's important to recognise here that not all of the cache's contents are violent. There were lots of other ways of trying to entice people to Islamic State, and the food and the lifestyle, even the healthcare, or at least heavily propagandised versions of them, were all used as ways of trying to entice people in.
Someone who knows from her student days how young people can be enticed is Hadia Messiah. She now helps women who may be in danger of falling victim to online radicalisation, and tells me how it's often the lure of a particular lifestyle that pulls people in.
Yeah, so this is like having a fun party, and you know, they're saying they've got all the ice cream that they want there. You know, it's not, again, a war zone. It's a land of plenty. It's what advertising is. So they were good at advertising.
I've watched beheading videos. I've been in conflict zones. I've had people close to me die at the hands of terrorist groups. The fact they're able to operate such an extensive operation is not only frustrating on a professional level, but it's personally demoralizing. The threat of the Caliphate cache extends beyond just propaganda on the internet. It is a means by which people become activated to do harm.
The type of platform on which this Caliphate cache sits makes it particularly tricky to pull down.
No way. We are willing to lay down our blood on this soil.
Mina Al-Lami is a specialist in this area.
The biggest development in jihadists' use of technology this year has been their exploitation of decentralized websites, decentralized platforms.
Decentralization software allows users to store and share content across the web at multiple locations. The servers used are owned by people rather than one company.
The developers of these decentralized platforms have no way of acting against content that is stored on user-operated servers, or content that is shared across a dispersed network of users. It's really all about privacy, freedom, encryption. It's really the control, the full control they promise to give to users. That's what attracts jihadists to these platforms.
And despite Mustafa's team having alerted the authorities in both America and the UK, the cache is still online. In fact, it's even got bigger. So we as a programme approached the authorities once again. London's Met Police acknowledged receiving the disclosure last year and said, every single referral made to the CTIRU, Counter-Terrorism Internet Referral Unit, of which there are thousands each year, is assessed by specialist officers and appropriate action is taken. Where material does breach UK terrorism laws, the unit will take steps to get it removed by the host website or platform. In the 12 months, May 2018 to April 2019 alone, the CTIRU secured the removal of in excess of 8,000 links to online terrorist content. The US Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of New York declined to comment.
the thing is multiplying, and it will continue to multiply unless we take some sort of action.
Fascinating yet terrifying report there. Carl joins me now. Carl, hi. Why do you think it was so difficult for the authorities to be able to police this content?
What the police have is a nightmare. You've got the perpetrators in one country, you've got the victims in another, you've got evidence sprayed all over the world, and it's just unbelievably difficult if you're any police force anywhere in the world to reach across all those borders and bring them all back into anything that looks like an investigation, let alone a court case.
Because what we did see in the film was that counter-terrorism authorities in the US and the UK had been contacted, but that didn't seem to amount to a great deal.
I mean, the problem is that it's kind of everyone's problem and therefore nobody's problem. We might want to blame the police, we might even want to blame the tech giants, but there's a whole new kind of player in this kind of game, which is decentralisation. So suddenly there isn't even really a tech giant or a police force to pick up the phone and yell at.
How do you think this content can ever be stopped?
I mean, I think very clearly coming out of this, we're learning that information is basically indestructible. You can't destroy it, you can't kill it, it's very difficult to get rid of. And that means that invariably the kind of territory which so-called IS has managed to carve out online is going to be much, much more difficult to ever fully kind of invade or defeat than any of the territory which they once held in the physical world.
Hello and welcome to the Week in Tech. It was the week that Uber introduced selfie tech in North America to make sure passengers wear face masks. Amazon's Prime Air fleet has been given permission to lift off by US regulators. And Tesla showed off its Model 3 production centre in China. We know face masks help stop the spread of coronavirus, and now a new device from LG comes with air purifying tech too. The PuriCare mask feeds filtered air to the wearer and uses sensors to adapt fan speeds to help make breathing feel more normal. Spot, the four-legged robot, has been deployed to take patients' vitals in a US hospital. The Boston Dynamics machine carries a tablet so doctors can ask patients questions. 4 cameras measure skin temperature, breathing, pulse rate and blood oxygen levels from up to 2 meters away. Artificially intelligent CCTV cameras are being rolled out to detect violence on Sydney's rail network. It's part of an initiative to improve safety for women travelling on public transport at night. And finally, with some galleries struggling to reopen, how about this entirely virtual art museum? FOMA, the virtual online museum of art, claims to be the first completely imagined gallery to showcase art loaned from world-leading institutions. Find art on display, a cafe for catching up, and even a garden for some tranquility.
This is Samsung's third attempt at a folding phone, and honestly, what a difference a year makes. Compared to the original Galaxy Fold, almost everything has been improved, apart from the name. This is the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 2 5G. When the original Galaxy Fold went on sale in September 2019, it had a tiny screen on the outside, a huge camera notch on the inside, and a metal finish that was a total fingerprint magnet. This time, the outside screen is a sensible 6.2 inches, the inside bezels are reduced to a sliver, and the back is a pleasant matte finish. Everything is so much more refined this time round that it makes last year's Galaxy Fold seem like it was a prototype, a £1,800 prototype, which is probably why people say it's not always a good idea to be an early adopter. But what are we supposed to use this for? Evidently it combines the convenience of a phone with a screen the size of a tablet. And some apps support Flex Mode, which splits the folding display in two, so you can watch YouTube videos like this, and in the camera you can take photos like this, although yeah, I'm not exactly sure why you'd want to. Although with the external display, you can use the phone as its own stand for video calls, which is quite useful. I think it would be quite nice if you could keep it on your desk sideways to see notifications and calendar events, although the lock screen is vertical only, so it's not really optimized for this, and actually you get that feeling from a lot of apps. Samsung acknowledges that it needs more developers to modify their apps to work in this format, and in time it will probably improve. But this disconnect extends to the operating system. You can put your favourite apps and a wallpaper on the home screen, close the phone, and they're gone because they're two independent home screens, which I suppose makes sense, but it's not how I expected it to work. The category of folding phones has definitely put some excitement back into smartphones, but it's difficult to say what will become the most popular format, if any. Companies are still figuring out what works best. Samsung has its Z Flip or Z Flip. Instead of expanding into a tablet, that one is just a regular phone that folds in half. And the new Microsoft Surface Duo has two displays, but the screens themselves don't fold. This latest effort from Samsung still doesn't fold completely flat. There's still a gap in between the two screens, which I expect they would change in the future. And crucially, unlike other flagship smartphones, this isn't water or even dust resistant. And I think if people are spending £1,800 on a smartphone, they probably don't want it to get broken by dust. Although, if you're rich enough to spend that much on a phone, you can probably just buy a second as a spare.
That was Chris. Now, over the summer, one of the many festivals to be cancelled was the Edinburgh Fringe. Usually thousands of performers descend upon Scotland, bringing comedy, dance and theatre.
Yeah, this is a really big deal. I love this festival. I especially love watching all of the comedians testing out their new material.
But you have been making up for it online, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. So, I have been going to quite a few virtual comedy gigs, and this is where comedians have been finding new ways to get themselves heard.
Welcome to the COVID Arms. Give me a massive cheer for the start of the show. Woo!
Drop in to the online comedy club, the COVID Arms, and you'll find landlady Kiri Pritchard-McLean introducing a host of stand-ups. And while they do their gigs, the club has so far raised more than £100,000 for charity.
One of the things about lockdown is that you get to know your kids a lot better because you're with them 24/7. So, like, you have thoughts like, I need to give the teachers a big present.
But doing stand-up without being able to hear the audience's reaction is a tough gig, and you really have to craft your routine carefully.
New material is very hard to do online without an audience because it's so symbiotic, that relationship of working up new material, because you're basically taking this like precious butterfly of an idea and you're like, is this rubbish? And they're like, yes, or like, no, let it fly. So I think you definitely need some kind of live audience if you're doing new material. But if you're doing tried and tested, you know where the funnies are.
No point in saying anything amusing, there's no one to hear it. Okay.
Comedy panel shows on TV and radio have also gone on air without an audience, and in many cases, without a studio.
I just realised, weirdly, I've never actually been to your house.
Oh, that's true. Well, we're certainly not going to be inviting you round anytime soon, Nish.
Yeah, because of the lockdown.
Sure.
One of the first to try recording in lockdown was The MASH Report, where Rachel Parris and Nish Kumar went from feeding off live laughs to hoping that their jokes hit home at home.
As a performer, oh man, I miss the audience so much. And I can tell the difference between my performances when I'm in front of a live audience and when I'm not. And when you've got an audience, just this light comes on.
It's Rachel Parris and Marcus Brigstock!
But now, Rachel and her husband, fellow comedian Marcus Brigstock, can hear the laughs again.
You keep chatting and I'll give it a go.
All right, I'll keep chatting about mini cheddars. Now, we had a conversation. That's going to be really, that's like the most upstaging thing that you could do. That's made it worse. You've censored yourself.
This is their weekly online show at the Always Be Comedy Club, and it has a live front row.
I think the front row that we hear and see on these online gigs is only 10 people, and it makes such a huge difference. It changes the gig, in my mind, completely, and it improves. It means you can do your jokes with the correct timing.
And as we heard earlier, a live audience is vital in helping comedians to workshop new material. After all, barnstorming routines don't arrive fully formed.
So I would be going out at least 5 nights a week to play tiny venues with a brand new hour, you know, and they pay a very small amount of money. And I suppose in a sense, that's what the Tuesday night ABC shows. And it's £3, you know, which we regret. That is a bit too low. But it's £3 of us tumbling through a string of ideas, some of which will turn into, hopefully, great and long-lasting routines that we do for the next year. But
James Gill is the MC and warm-up for the couple, and he's found that there are certain hazards to having an audience who are live in their own living rooms.
Two of our regulars, and they're such lovely people, but they've got a dog. And so a couple... Again, you know, you don't get this at the Palladium. But a couple of times, a comedian, you know, might be in the middle of a set, and you can hear... And so I know that Tim, quick as a flash, is finding that box, clicking mute.
This is a different world for comedians who are so used to a mic, a stage, and very little else. And some are experimenting.
I am, I say.
Harry Hill hides in the edge of his webcam shot.
5G, of course, 5G. It's 5G, wasn't it?
Al Murray's pub landlord character now preaches from a virtual beer cellar.
Straight on the van.
And the virtual background video feature means that Stuart Laws is sometimes upstaged by himself during his gig.
Probably HP, but they're both brown sauces, believe it. Different sauces for different courses.
And some comedians have gone even more interactive.
Beautiful, great. So
this is how comedian Monica Gaga teaches improvisation in online lessons. She's also part of an online improv show called Hell Yeah, where the lineup react and improvise with each other remotely. It's a skill, she says, which is useful in life and work, as well as on stage.
It's all of those key skills, like it's the listening, it's being able to be open to failure. It's about listening to yourself and not judging yourself. And also it's about playing and creativity, something that I find as an adult, we kind of condition ourselves out of. If a situation happens and you're like, I know what I'm doing, and all of a sudden it changes, and that's not panic-inducing for you, it means that whatever situation you're put into, you're able to deal with it.
Comedy clubs are now starting to reopen, and the comedians that I've spoken to are gagging to get back to them. But online gigs may just stick around.
One thing that's come out of this is I think that when and if my tour comes back, I will have a digital date on the tour. Also, it means that, you know, anyone who wasn't able to get a babysitter that night or whatever, or, you know, has anxiety, gets to go and see it as well.
But if anyone can visit a gig anywhere in the world, it does cause a problem for comedians who are still honing their acts.
You're just blasting through material. You know, when I do a tour, each night is special and you talk about where you are and all the rest of it. Broadly speaking, I do the same show every time with some stuff that's special to that night. Well, you can't do that online. And therefore what you develop,
that's true.
You know, it can't get good in the same way.
Because you can't repeat it.
But who knows? Maybe a new generation of live comics will be born out of this situation who can make the medium work in new ways. After all, how many gigs have you been to that end like this? And that's it for this week. Hope you've enjoyed the programme.
As ever, you can keep up with the team on social media, on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at BBC Click.
Thanks for watching and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.